Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya.
Reading from Canto 4, Chapter 17, Text 29. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Vacha Namah Parasmai Purushaya Maya Vinyastanana Tanave Gunakmane Namah Surupanubhavena Nirdita Dravyakriya Karaka Vibramor Maye Dada, the planet Earth. Uvacha said, Namaha, I offer my obeisances, Parasmai, unto the transcendence, Purushaya, unto the person, Maya, by the material energy, Vinyasta, expanded, Nana, various, Tanave, form, Guna Atmane, unto the source of the three modes of material nature. Namaha, I offer my obeisances, Swarupa, of the real form, Anubhavena, by understanding, Nirdutta, not affected by, Dravya, by matter, Kriya, actions, Karaka, doer, Vibrama, bewilderment, Urmaye, the waves of material existence. Translation. The planet Earth spoke, My dear Lord, O personality, Supreme Personality of Godhead, you are transcendental in your position, and by your material energy, you have expanded yourselves in various forms and species of life through the interactions of the three modes of nature. Unlike some other masters, you always remain in your transcendental position and are not affected by the material creation, which is subject to different material interactions. Consequently, you are not bewildered by material activities. Purport. After King Prthhu gave his royal command, the planet Earth in the shape of a cow could understand that the king is a directly empowered incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's a long purport, so I have to give a test to see if you're listening. And if I was in the audience, I would fail the test. I already forgot what I read. Thus, there was no possibility of the earth cheating him. The earth was accused of hiding the seeds of all herbs and grains, and therefore she is preparing to explain how the seeds of these herbs and grains can again be exposed. The earth knew that the king was very angry with her, and she realized that unless she pacified his anger, there was no possibility of placing a positive program before him. Therefore, in the beginning of her speech, she very humbly presents herself as part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's body. She submits that the various bodily forms manifest in the physical world are but different parts and parcels of the Supreme Gigantic Body. It is said that the lower planetary systems are parts and parcels of the legs of the Lord, whereas the upper planetary systems are parts and parcels of the Lord's head. The Lord creates this material world by his external energy, but the external energy is in one sense non-different from him. Yet at the same time, the Lord is not directly manifest in the external energy, but always situated in the spiritual energy. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Mayadhyakshena Prakriti, material nature is working under the direction of the Lord. Okay. Therefore, the Lord is not attached to the external energy, and he's addressed in this verse as Guna Atma, the source of the three modes of material nature. Wow. So, King Prthhu we're discussing. King Prthhu means Shaktavesh, avatar. It means a manifestation. It could be a living entity who's empowered by God. And he's empowered by God to do the work of God as if God was doing it. So Prithhu Maharaj is the Shaktavesh avatar for ruling the world. Veda Vyasa is the Shaktavesh avatar for editing. He's editing as if God would edit, and that comes out the Bhagavatam. I also told the story that 11 days after Srila Prabhupada disappeared, I was walking up the building there, and Jayapataka Swami was coming down, and in a very excited way, and he told me, I don't know, that he got a message from Prabhupada's godbrother, Bhakti Rashaka Sridhar, some kind of glorification that Prabhupada was a Shaktavesh avatar for preaching Krishna consciousness. That he was spreading Krishna consciousness as if Lord Chaitanya was doing it. So, when one doesn't understand God, if God's merciful, God manifests his power to one. Or he takes away our own power. Prabhupada calls it material protective agents. And somehow or other, for devotion, the first principle, this is also one of the principles of the Bhagavatam. One of the principles of the Bhagavatam is called statir, the rights, or stanam. Atta sargasha statir. Statir, and what does statir mean? Statir Vaikuntha Vijaya. Vaikuntha Vijaya, who is victorious in your relationship with everything or God. God is victorious. God is superior. And therefore, if he's merciful to you, he will reveal reality. Either his own glory or your lack of power. For example, I was in the Himalayas about 30, 40 years ago, and I was in a bus with a book distribution party, and we were going back from the Himalayas to Vrindavan, and looking out in the Himalayas, when I was young, I heard the Himalayas, and I thought you'd stand at here and you'd look up to this high thing. But it's just peak after peak after peak, and they get higher, and they get higher and higher. And what did I do? Bowed my head. God is great. I bowed my head. He manifests his power, his vibhutis. That's why in the 9th and 10th chapter, the vibhutis, the powers of God, are presented. Because in our present situation, not having a spontaneous,
and loving relationship with God, we don't experience His supreme glory. And what is the supreme glory of anybody? It's their love. It's not their position. It's their love. And that can only be experienced if you have a relationship. The supreme glory of God is His love, is His sweetness, is His beauty. And that makes one more humble than anything else. One becomes more humble to love than anything else. Even big, powerful men, if they fall in love, they can become humble fools. But they may be controlling everyone. They may be controlling everyone. But in love, they become so humble. One time, I don't know what, I was visiting the temple. I was invited for a function at the temple of Prabhupada's godbrother, Bhakti Vaibhav Puri Maharaj, which overlooks Radhakund, overlooks Shamakund. And I was invited there. But somehow, when we came in, we went into his room, because we had a nice relationship. And he had just finished his morning sadhana. Probably for so many years, he had a good morning sadhana. So he was expressing his, when we looked at it, he just went at us and he looked at us and said, Kirtaniya Siddha Hari! Kirtaniya Siddha Hari! Kirtaniya Siddha Hari! I guess he was feeling something. And then, at the time, he understood that the people in ISKCON, including myself and others, we were finding out that there was an aspect of the philosophy we weren't so aware of called Raganuga Bhakti, spontaneous devotion. So somehow, I don't know who told him what, when I came in and he looked at us and he said, so you want to understand Raganuga Bhakti? He said, but in your country, because he was talking about abortions and things like that, that in your country you do not even understand the love of a mother for their child. And you want to understand, he got really emotional. You want to understand Raganuga Bhakti, and you don't even. And then, and he said, and without understanding the love of a mother for a child, how will you understand the love of Mother Yasoda for Krishna? And then there was like a monkey on the railing, and the big monkey, I think it was like a banana peel or something, kicked off the little monkey and took the banana peel. He said, that's the love of a mother for their child in the West. And he said, and you want to understand the love of mother. And then he went on, he said, I knew a man in Calcutta, right? I knew a man in Calcutta, and he was crying. He said he was 75 years old. He said he was 80 years old. He had 10 sons, like 1,000 grandchildren, so 10 sons and 100 grandchildren. And he owned a big factory, and there were thousands of workers under his control, but he would only take food from the hand of his 95-year-old mother. That is the love of a mother for their child. And without understanding that love, how will you understand the love of Mother Yasoda for her child? He was great. He was really wonderful devotee. But the point is, the man became humble to what? To this little old frail lady who loved him. In love, you can become humble. When mother means love. And if one experiences real love from the mother, they'll be like a child before the mother. Even if they're so powerful. Sometimes even in these mafia families, they're killing everybody, but their mother, they're like this. So if you don't have that type of love towards Krishna, then how will you become humble? Only if God shows his vibhutis or powers. That's why the first step in God realization is the universal form. In the second canto, there's a progression. I think first chapter is the universal form, then realizing God in the super soul, and then worship, devotional service. Third chapter is pure devotional service. Because you have to see what you surrender to what is great. You surrender to what is great. And the first way to understand God is great is that all those things that you see as great are connected with God. Seeing God in nature. And one of the manifestations of God is the king. And if you are wrongly situated, right, and try to take that position artificially of controller in a community where your attitude exploits and cheats others, then the king will show his power. In a very, very powerful way. The king will show his power. Even in the Bhagavatam, the Krishna Leelas, he's killing so many demons who represent different anarthas. But he'll show his power. He'll show his power. Because that's one of the ways that someone realizes superiority. The king will try to invoke it by just exhibiting accoutrements of power and also by his compassion, but ultimately he has to see, otherwise the citizens will become exploited. That's why the father of Prthhu was King Vena. And King Vena was the son of Marajanga. So what's the story? Vena was such a embarrassing child. He was so cruel, he was killing his playmates. I remember when I would come home from school, my father would say, no son of mine comes home with, like a C+. No son of mine, or B, or whatever it is. No son of mine comes home. So what happens when you embarrass like that? In the Jaiva Dharma, the story is Lahari Mahasaya, this old aristocratic man, becomes a devotee. And his sons freak out. Why? Because, we're the body, we're not the body. Consciousness identifies with the body. We can identify with the community. And then it becomes extended selfishness, family extended selfishness, community extended selfishness, even in humanity, and neglecting the animals. You can extend the conception of the self. And therefore, if the family does not do good, it's part of your own ego. So it's very painful in every way when a unit connected with you goes against your ideals. So the son was upset. So his name was Devi Das. And he was upset. He came there to try to get his father back. So can you imagine, Anga was so upset. He's so upset, his son was killing playmates. He had to leave home. And then what? We know the story. There was a problem. Because when there's not strong that mood service, which empowers that person further to serve the people who empower him with that authority to make sure that the community values are not threatened by people who are selfish. So, someone very strong needs to be in that position of a king. And in the Bhagavatam, it describes Maharaj Cricket. I don't know if it's the commentary or Prabhupada said, or I heard it from Borijan. He said the king must be a Mahabhagava to satisfy everyone. You know, it's very strong. How Maharaj Cricket came out immediately when there was some difficulty, very strong. Immediately came out. I always remember this statement, some kind of war was going on with America and someone did something, Prabhupada said, if the President of the United States became Krishna conscious, he would say, if you harm one hair on the head of one of our men, there will be fight. The leader had this power. They had power. So you need someone, but at the same time, the person has to be kind. Always mention this, kind and powerful. The person's not powerful, if the person's not kind, he won't help you. If he's not powerful, he can't help you. So this is what we're seeing in Prthhu, both in the same person or it doesn't work out. Just kind won't help you. He's a nice guy. Okay, the place is being overrun. People being robbed. So, yeah, he's a nice guy. And if he's not strong, it won't help you. If he's not kind, and the guy's not kind, you know, oh, yeah, he's so strong, you know, he's like oppressing everyone, and we can't do this, and everyone, they must both be both. It's such a challenge, and that's what's described. It's such a challenge. Because that's why he's saying you must be God to be ruler of the world and not be affected by it. You have all the power, the ability. King means the ability, karmic ability, to move all resources any way you want, including for your own desires. So they're saying, you're so great, because now the cow is surrendered. You are so great that you're in that position and you're not affected by any material dualities. And what's one of the main ways that that's done? In Vedic society, when you get that power, you're number two. Those who are renounced and learned, they're number one. You're number two. You have full authority. But you have to listen to them. So anyway, to bring it up to Prthhu and what's happening here, what happens is that the king, they first say, where are we going to get a person with this power? Because as soon as the king is not there, the rogues and the thieves, they flourish. It's such a psychology. When someone is powerful, people know psychologically, don't mess. They know that. From a person who actually has those powers, don't mess, and they don't. There's not going to be any mental plane about it. Don't mess. Like Mr. Sethi from Bombay. who had the construction company, was a Kshatriya. And when they needed his help, because the Gundars had ripped down the temple, and Giriraj Swami asked him for help. And I always remember this story because Mr. Sethi told it to me personally. I went to his house. Giriraj, he said, I will build the temple. In that weekend, they needed to build the temple, otherwise in the court case, they'd lose it on Monday, this whole thing. And then Giriraj Swami said, but the Gundars would come. Giriraj Swami was very kind, very nice. Well, what will happen, Mr. Sethi? And Mr. Sethi just said, Bridge, get my gun. The first man over the line is a dead man. He sat there the whole weekend. The Kshatriyas, they're powerful. You need that, but if they're not kind, they exploit everything. So King Venu became the king, and what is the first thing he did? He became envious of the Brahmins and stopped their sacrifices. So without sacrifice, people are ruined. There's no prosperity. Success is not just management. Success is the support of spirituality and pleasure to God, pleasure to the deities, which creates auspiciousness. So if that's stopped, there's no auspiciousness, no matter how expert the management is. If the Brahmins and the deities are not flourishing, there's no success. So that's what happened. And then the kings were in a dilemma. If we get rid of Vena, these rogues and thieves will, no powerful leader, the rogues and thieves will flourish. And if there's a powerful, and if the powerful leader doesn't support the Brahmins and the sacrifice, then you'll be consumed by the lack of religiosity. And the Brahmins were saying, we feel like we are ants on a log that is burning from both sides. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. If we go one way and we remove Vena, we'll be consumed by the rogues and thieves. If we keep him, we'll be consumed by the lack of religiosity. And finally they had to kill him. And from him, somehow or other, manifest a Shaktavesh avatar, Prthhu, who had both qualities and can take that position of power in humility. And humility means to acknowledge and understand there's something greater than myself, including there is authority and knowledge greater than my desires and my whims, and I am surrendered to that. And to keep that in focus when everything is telling you something else. So how powerful he is here. And therefore the planet Earth, she's seeing it. And therefore she's surrendering, which is one of the flavors of relationship in, I think it's called Gaurava Priti Ras. No, something else. There's many flavors of love and relationship to God. One is the mood of service. And one of the relationships in service is surrendering to God out of fear. There's very close, intimate friends. There's all kinds of friends. There's administrative friends. And then there's friends like Kalia. Then there's servants like Kalia that had to see God's power. They had to see God dance on one's head and crush one's false ego. The hoods of Kalia represented the false ego. And what's the false ego? every time you're banged down, another head comes up, but, then smash, then but. I could have defeated you, but I had my school clothes on, I didn't want to get them dirty. That's our culture here in New York. But when everyone is beaten down, Krishna actually will beat down every inch of one's false ego, if he is merciful to you. And then what happened when it was all beaten down? Then Kaliya could remember the instructions of the wives who were devotees. When you have the false ego, you cannot hear. You cannot hear service and surrender. And if God is merciful enough and it's all crushed down, this is in hand language here, here's Kaliya, okay? When he was finally, all the bones in his neck were broken. And he went to Krishna and went, I'm sorry. And surrendered fully. Then surrendered. So this is what's happening here. So and that every one of the citizens is nourished and protected, and no one has a right to interfere with